Hello, all you lovely goblins and ghouls of the internet. I am your demonic cinephile, Hanyo, and we are back with Interview with the Vampire, Episode 4 The Ruthless Pursuit of Blood with All a Child's Demandings. In this episode, we finally get to meet the third wheel of our trio, the vampire child Claudia. I really do like how this episode flips the show just a little bit. It gives it much more of a comedic edge, a little bit more family friendly-esque. Well, family friendly you can get with vampires, blood, murder, being stuck in the body of a child for eternity. Most of the story, or at least the flashback of the episode, is told through the perspective of Claudia, through the journals that Daniel is reading. And I like this version of Claudia. I think she's really cool. I think she's really fun, very creative, very different from the character in the book so far. In this episode, she is very different from the book. Like, this could really almost be an original character. She has Claudia's origin to a point, but not really. But I do like the presence Claudia brings into the family. When you can tell, well, to put it how it's mentioned later in the episode, she was a bandage for their marriage. And I think Louis knew it to a point, or Lestat knew it. Is very much different from the novel, because in the novel is pointing out to show that Lestat, because in the novel Louis, in his depressed states, finds a sickened Claudia next to her dead mother, and he just can't control himself, and he feeds on her, almost killing her. Lestat, seeing this, rescues Claudia from an orphanage, or as a hospital, a day or so later, and turns her for Louis. He did the vampire equivalent of, I know, let's have a freaking kid. That will solve all our problems. And, of course, it did. Until it didn't. When it came to passing of time in this episode, I really liked it much better than the previous episodes. Previous episodes, when they passed the time, it was shown in these kind of stale montages, and it was mostly just told to the audience. It was told that 7 years have passed. We never really got to feel the passage of time, and I think with the montage with Claudia is much more different. The upbeat jazz, and like you can feel the presence of the 20s. I think much more than episode 3, and you know how much I got a kick out of watching Claudia, Louis, and Lestat just sitting down in the theater watching Nosferatu. That's a fun thing, because it's fun because it's a bunch of vampires watching a vampire movie, and they're goofing around how dumb and silly is compared to what they really are. But it's also a fun way for the audience who are big horror fans, who do know their vampire stuff, to say, okay, they're in 1923, which they do name drop the date around the end of the episode with the wraparound during the interview. But for all the vampire fans or horror fans, they just know, oh, it's Nosferatu, so the current timeline is 1923. Wait, did I say 28 before? No, it's 1923. 1923 is when Nosferatu was released. Yeah, so the very first half of the episode is very much fun and silly, with them making the family, Louis and Lestat, being total dads. They're like, ugh, I don't like the plated skirt on her. And Louis like, But Siobhan, it's fashion. It was cute. It's nice watching Louis and Lestat just being a loving couple and not being the toxic, the normal toxic selves to each other. The second half of the episode is where it starts to get a little more darker, and it opens up. It cuts to them celebrating after watching Nosferatu, and them cutting to Louis' mother's funeral. Now, more or less, I didn't really care about this because the mother character, she wasn't. This is the one thing I love that show decided to do more with the Point du Lac family. But after the very first episode, they're very blink and you miss it. I guess you could say this is Louis, how he remembers his family, how they have faded from his memories, this is how detached he was from them. But for the audience sake, for them being characters in the show, they're just like there. Like, you could probably edit out every scene with his family besides episode 1, and it really wouldn't make that much of a difference. Or they're at the funeral, and Louis introduces his sister and brother-in-law to Claudia, and they're all weirded out, like, you think you two, like, you two men, could really raise a child? Yeah, it probably wasn't really meant to be like that, but it was more because how they view Louis now, since the last episode, with him kicking the door down, and he's been... How long they've been together right now? So Claudia's... It's been about a little over 10 years since the night of Paul's funeral, when Louis was turned. And they see that he hasn't aged a bit. So they are scared of Louis. They know he's something weird. Probably not a vampire. They probably think he's a witch or something. I'm not sure. What I found weird was the rudeness, the front. Louis' sister was putting up to him, and how Louis responded within tow. Because they want to sell the house. They want to live in it anymore, or they want to buy him out. I can't remember which one it was. And his sister, whose name I cannot remember, she makes a remark that says, "You and your white daddy are good for the money." Like, they basically, we don't need to pay you. And Louis very coldly goes up to her and says, "Sure you want to do that, Grace? You remember what I did to that door?" And, well, it is... See, I don't know how to feel about that, because it shows Louis is disconnecting from his family. But it feels too rough, feels too hard. It's like, how do we get here? Like, we feel like we're missing something. Because, yes, Grace rejected... Yeah, that's his name, Grace. That's the name of his sister, is Grace. Yeah, Grace rejected him only after seeing him do something clearly supernatural and scary. So it doesn't feel right in how the tone is going. Of course, Louis and Claudia break it up by saying, "Oh, the place smells awful. Oh, it's because wicks were invented during the winter." And they leave. The next scene, where I thought was really kind of nice, nothing we got in the book, as far as I can recall, is where Louis takes Claudia onto a boat ride. And we see Louis catching fish and eating it, which is fun. And Claudia goes to this point where, like, how does the love between two men work? And I like Louis' response, like, he's trying to think about it, think hard, like, what's the best answer? He's like, I guess it just works like love. There was line where he did say, "I used to like girls, or at least to pretend to." Which was kind of weird because in the novels, Louis was bi. At least I believe so. Because there was one character in interview, Babette. Babette. He had a kind of a thing for, or he was her mentor. Louis never gives into his feeling for Babette. Either they were just feelings of friendship or romance or probably more akin to a student and teacher. He never clarifies his true feelings for her in that moment. And then we get to it started off as a pretty fun scene where Lestat is driving Claudia to basically a little makeout section where couples go to hook up during the time of Prohibition. I know, like, funny, it was like where he's basically making a metaphor for sex, where he's like, look at these people out here learning the magic of 1 + 1 = 1. It's Claude's like, they come out here to do math. They come out here to do math. You're like, he goes down to his face like, wow, we really sheltered you. But during the attack, Claudia watches the two couple have sex, or about to, and that opens up her brain, opens up that part of her where she's kind of been, it opens up that part of her that's been kind of suppressed, but living with, basically living as a child for these numbers of years. Her body never growing, and her body never growing, they also show that not just her physical form, but her brain chemistry as well. Which I'm pretty sure did not work in the book like that, but they made so many changes to the vampires already, so we'll brush that aside for now. And we see Claudia starts to dress more maturely. She takes the clothes from a person she killed, all fancied up. Nice dress, a big coat, a couple of necklaces. Looks like a very sharp, mature young lady. And while she's walking down the street, she hears whisperings of 3 racist girls. She's about to go get her a nice little snack for the night, but she isn't. But it's interrupted by this. She scares a horse, and she meets a young man by the name of Charlie. Now, Charlie is the original character for this episode. I cannot believe there was, as far as I can recall, because I did read the book a couple of days before the show started, just to refresh myself. There was never a character similar to Charlie in the novel. I know there's a prequel novel by Claudia's point of view, or it's a graphic novel by Anne Rice. I did not read that, so maybe there is a Charlie character in those. I'm not sure. But yeah, when we introduce Charlie, we get to see Claudia's first love, her first crush, and she acts like probably any normal average girl would. She gets all sweet, gets all fluttery. It's a cute scene where she goes up to the balcony of her bedroom. She's like looking down at him like, if he looks up, he likes me. If he looks up, he likes me. And we also get the part where she gets his little love letter, his invitation to a date. And you hear Louis reading her thoughts like, who's Charlie? Like, Claudia? Claudia, are you trying to block me? You're blocking my thoughts? I am your daddy. Which you do see that Claudia does have the ability to block the vampire thoughts coming to her, which Claudia could not read thoughts in the book. They gave her a huge power up like basically all the vampires in the show. Then we get on a nice little date with Charlie. Going all sweet. Till they get in the back of his truck and start making out. And I do kind of like how they do point out that Charlie is uncomfortable being with her at this moment, because Claudia is supposed to be physically 14 and he's about 18 or 19. And he said he was younger, so 17 or 18. She gets him to brush it aside, saying that she's actually older than she looks. He's trying to wait, trying to not to take it to the next level, and he calls her. He says, "Claudia, you're not a girl. You're an angel." And Claudia can help herself. She kisses him. She kisses his neck. She bites his neck, and she starts to drain him. Another little inconsistency is because in the show they are going with the old rule that was in the original novel, but I think I retcon later out of the books. First, I've heard, I cannot remember it being directly stated in the novels that was just something Louis made up, was the fact that the vampires have to stop drinking when the heart stops, because they're no longer taking that person's life, they're taking their death, and they take in their death, they become sick or die as well. So she kills Charlie, she brings him back home, and she's begging for Lestat to turn him. Like, you turned me, you saved me, you can do it to him. He's like, I can't. You killed him completely. You didn't have to kill him. And we get to see Lestat's harsher parenting, because it was like this in the novel as well. Lestat was the more harsh, more nasty, abrasive personality of their parenting, where Louis was more just sweet and gentle. He forces Claudia to clean up the mess and throw Charlie's body in the incinerator. And while he's doing that, he holds her there, so she has to watch as his bones turn black, as his face turns to soup. And we cut out of that. We go back to the frame round, to the present day, where Louis more or less admits that he hid the books during the first interview, not to bring them up, because after reading all of Claudia's diaries, he realized how much he's failed her. He failed her as a father, he failed her as her protector. And once again, props off to Jacob Anderson, giving such a fantastic performance in literally every scene he's in. We got probably my favorite ending of any of the episodes so far, where Claudia is, and it kind of ends with she breaks down into this sad but sort of epic monologue, and it ends with her self-harming. She goes to the little light thing that Lestat has in her house, which I have no idea the reason why he has it. He knows sunlight can kill him. I'm not sure why he doesn't brick it up, but whatever. It's a Chekhov's gun. It's gonna come port in the last episode, more likely. So what what Claudia does, she opens it, and she puts part of her arm into the sunlight, and we can see how her arm starts to dissolve and her skin turns to ash. Another interesting thing about this episode is the character of Rashid. So we've been getting little hints that Rashid is probably a little bit more than just Louis' servant. I did like where he's like, you see him praying. He's doing the I want to say, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I get this wrong. The Islamic prayer, where he's bending down. He's praying, but he said something that catches Daniel's attention. That's something that's from more something that's not Islamic. And he's like, "You're not really from Dubai, are you?" And he says, "Dubai is a child." And there's other little moments you notice that he's not always in the sunlight. he's never in the sunlight. He has his school gloves on, so you can't really see his fingers. You can see the white vampire nails. So you're kind of wondering, is Rashid a vampire? Well, spoiler alert, I know he's not. I skipped a few episodes, but I just finally had the time to record this one. I originally really thought Rashid was going to be a body thief, but that's been blown for me, so yeah, no theory for me. But again, pros. Everything about this episode was awesome. Probably the most fun episode so far. Especially love the scene which was taken almost directly out of the book, where Louis and Lestat bring Claudia to a coffin shop so she can get her own coffin to sleep in, and Louis starts telling the store owner, like, oh, she has a heart condition. She's not long for this world. We're trying to get her used to the thought of going home to God. And Claudia just sits out the coffin like, I love it. The store owner's me like, there's nothing right here. This is not right. What is going on? Louis like, we gotta do it. Goes to close the curtains. Lestat gets ready to chow down on Coffin Maker. And it was nice. Yeah, it was like nice to see the family develop. Which, not trying to think more closely, we never really got to do in the novel. I'm not sure it's spoken of, but I think this sells it a little bit more now that we get to actually see their happiness together visually. My overall thoughts of the episode is positive, good, it's fun, it's creepy, the performances are outstanding. I also want to give a little quick shout out to Bailey Bass for playing Claudia. Fantastic. She was really great. She's not really Claudia from the books. She is and she isn't. But for the character that she is playing and the performance that she is giving, fantastic. Now, negatives. My negatives for this is kind of like what I just said earlier, that Louis' family, when they're in the show, it comes off really weird how they want to portray them, how the time is passing, and I didn't really like the interaction. I get it and I don't get it. Other really negative is a big tonal shift from literally the first half of the episode to the second half, and basically the only complaint I keep having from this episode to the first ones is that the show feels rushed, and but it also doesn't, because it is the interview that we are seeing, the flashbacks, is Louis telling this to Daniel. It's not just a straight up flashback. So we can understand Louis cutting things out, and we can understand Louis not going into great details of things that don't really need to be spoken upon. But watching it, it does. Like, it feels like certain things that should be more expanded on are just left out. It doesn't even me complaining about the show. This is something I kind of have problems with in the original story as well. Also kind of negative is Lestat's sudden change from harsh loving father to almost the harsh lesson that he gives her, that you cannot get too close to mortals because they will always die. Now, it's kind of being hypocritical to Lestat because he got close to Louis, he made Louis his companion, his lover, and because we never get a hint of that in the earlier in the episode, we don't really get a hint of that. We do get a sense of the family breaking apart with the secrets, because when Lestat then he realized that Louis and Claudia can talk to each other through their minds and keep him out. He immediately goes that we do not keep secrets in the family, and Lestat is all known for keeping his secrets. But yeah, the whole holding her against her will to watch the body burn comes really almost out of nowhere. And I kind of get it if we're going through Lestat's personality, that maybe he's thinking about the spoiler alert for Interview, wherever they get to it in later seasons. But in The Vampire Lestat, Nicholas was Lestat's lover in he was Lestat's boyfriend in The Vampire Lestat. Lestat's oldest lover, and probably the first person he ever fell in love with. I think. I haven't read The Vampire Lestat in a long time. And Nicky, he's no longer around. He burned in a fire, and it was kind of Lestat's fault. Lestat turned Nicky into a vampire when his mind was already kind of broken, and becoming a vampire only made that worse. So I'm thinking Lestat is seeing a bit of himself in Claudia at that moment. He's seeing the fact that she destroyed someone that she loved, and he does not want it to break her like it broke him. That he's kind of forcing her to get through it, which he thinks is going to help her, which is not helping, is making it so much more worse. I hope that's the reason why they explained it, why he did it. Because, yeah, Lestat is bratty. He's cocky. He's full of himself. He hates being told no, and he hates being refused what he wants. But random violence like that is not really in his character. Even, well, I guess so for the version they use for the show. So, that was my not-so-quick thoughts about episode 4 of Interview with the Vampire. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Please put it down in the comments down below. And if you want to hear what else I have to say about this awesome show, or any other videos I may produce in the future, please hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And I will catch you all in the future. Bye-bye.